एक्टिव एंड द पैसिव कंपोनेंट्स। ओके, सो जो भी सर्किट्स डिज़ाइन होते हैं इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में, वो बेसिकली दो कंपोनेंट्स के कॉम्बिनेशन से जनरेट होते हैं। वन इज़ द एक्टिव कंपोनेंट एंड अनदर वन इज़ द पैसिव कंपोनेंट। ओके, सो उसके एप्लीकेशंस क्या है, मतलब कहाँ कहाँ पे वो यूज़ होता है, मतलब एक्टिव कंपोनेंट्स एंड द पैसिव कंपोनेंट्स। सो सिंपली इट इज़ अ रेडियो, मोबाइल, computers, TV, okay, etc. So, so we'll learn the each component in detail. So the active components, first we will learn about the active components. So the active components are simply we can say जिनको एक्सटर्नल पावर सोर्स रिक्वायर्ड होता है। ओके, जैसे कि बैटरी हुआ, डीसी सप्लाई हुआ और एसी सप्लाई हुआ। सो इसकी ज़रूरत होती है फॉर द एक्टिव कंपोनेंट्स फॉर देयर ऑपरेशन। ओके, देन इट कंट्रोल्स द फ्लो ऑफ करंट एंड द वोल्टेज। So simply we can say increasing the current or a voltage. So for that purpose, it is being used. Okay. So also for the amplification of the weak signal into a strong signal. Okay. So yeah, so this is the active components, and mainly it is called as a heart of the electronic circuits because they perform energy control and signal amplification. So what are the characteristics of the active components? So we'll learn the characteristics. So they require the biasing power to function. Then biasing power, or you can say the external supply, DC supply, or a battery or AC supply also. And they are having an ability to control the electron flow. They can control the flow of an electrons. Yeah. Then it provides the gain also because as output is greater than the input. So the input signal, if you are providing any 2 volt top signal, so and we require to uh, increase the output. Okay, so in that case the active components are being used, and it is a non-linear devices, means output is not directly proportional to the input in most cases. So simply we will understand how the uh, linear devices and the non-linear devices. Okay, so simply suppose we are considering x-axis and the y-axis. Okay, so here it is a x-axis, here it is a y-axis. So any of the component, if you are measuring their characteristics, so in that case, as the suppose the value on the x-axis is being increased, also the value on the y-axis increases proportionally. So we are considering here it is a 1. Okay, here 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so suppose we can say when the value of on the x-axis is, suppose it is a 0.5, so in that case on the y-axis suppose it is a 1. Okay, so this value we got. For the 1 value on the x-axis we are getting the value as a 2. Okay, like this suppose. Then for the value 1.5 on the x-axis we are getting it is a 3, suppose. Yeah, so this value. So if you combine these 3 points, okay, we will be getting the straight line. So this is the straight line we can say. So it is a linear one. So linear graph we are getting. So in most of the cases for the active components, we are not getting the linear graph. Okay, so it is a non-linear device or a non-linear characteristics we are getting for the active components. Then we'll see the examples of the active components. So firstly the diode. Okay, so allows the current only in the one direction. So we are using it into the rectifiers. Okay, so for rectifying the signal used in power supplies, signal demodulation. So signal demodulation basically it is the concept is used in the communication. So जैसे कि मोबाइल का सिग्नल हम ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं। ओके, सो सपोज एक मोबाइल से दूसरे मोबाइल पे जा रहा है, तो जब रिसीव होगा सिग्नल तो रिसीव होने से पहले उसको डीमोडुलेट करना होता है। सो फॉर दैट सर्किट डायोड इज बीइंग यूज्ड। देन द सेकंड कंपोनेंट है एक्टिव कंपोनेंट, इट इज अ ट्रांजिस्टर, मे बी इट इज अ बीजेटी, एफईटी और मॉसफेट। ओके, and it works as an amplifier or a switch. For the mainly transistors are being used for the amplification purpose. So basis of the modern electronics, and it is mainly used in the computers and the smartphones. Then the next example of the active component is the IC, or we can say it is a integrated circuits. So integrated circuits हमने देखा था कि it is a combination of transistors, resistors, and the different capacitors on a single chip. Okay. So here also means transistor is being introduced. Okay, so we can say it is a active component. Then their example is microprocessor, op-amp, memory chip. Okay, so these are the examples of the ICs. And the next example is vacuum tubes. Okay, so vacuum tube was invented before the transistor. So before transistor, vacuum tubes are being used. So mainly it was used in the before, we can say it is a before transistors. It was used in the radios, early computers, and the televisions. And the first example of the vacuum tube where it is used is ENIAC computer in 1945. Around 18,000 vacuum tubes were used uh, inside that. Okay, that computer, the first computer, and their applications was amplification purpose in the radios, TV, and the audio system, switching device in computer and the power supplies, then signal modulation and the demodulation, just like in a communication system. So जब signal transfer होता है from any of the device, so in that case modulation is being considered, and जब signal receive होता है तो हमें पहले demodulate करना होता है to that signal. Then in voltage regulators and stabilized power supply, it is being used. So these are the applications. These are the applications of the active components. Okay. So now we'll move towards the passive components. So what are the passive components? So as we have learned in the active components, so active components requires the external power supply, just like a battery, then DC supply or AC supply. But to the passive components, it the external power source is not required. Okay, so do not require the external power source. Then they cannot amplify the signals. They can only store, resist, or release energy. So they can store the energy. So suppose just like a capacitor. So capacitor can store the energy. Resist. So resistor will resist the flow of the electrons. Then the release energy. Okay. So I think normally for the inductor. So inductors are being considered for releasing an energy. Okay. Then there are supporting elements, we can say supporting elements to the active components. Okay, so the active device which we have learned, so उसके लिए ये as a supporting element work करते हैं. Okay, passive components. So उसकी characteristics क्या है of the passive components? So they do not need a biasing or external or extra power, cannot provide the gain, means output is not greater than the input, so we can say it is less than or equal to input. Generally, it is a linear devices, means it is providing the linear graph, we can say, okay, which we have learned. So here we have learned about this linear graph. So it is providing the linear graph. So the active components are normally linear devices, we can say. Yeah. So used for the filtering, tuning, and the energy storage. So filtering is simply the concept used in the power supply. So after the rectifiers, we are using the filters to remove the noise or the ripples. Okay, tuning is simply tuning to a particular frequency. So tuning circuits are there. So for that, it is being used. Then the energy storage, it is used. Then their examples are the components. Which components are comes under the passive components? First one is the resistor, then capacitor, inductor, and the transformer. So these are the examples of the passive components. So what is the function of the passive resistor is oppose the current flow, okay, and which controls the current and the voltage in the circuit. And capacitor stores energy in the form of electric field. It is used in the filtering, timing circuits, and the signal coupling or a decoupling. Okay, and inductors which stores energy in the form of magnetic field. Okay, so the capacitor stores energy in terms of electric field, and the inductor stores energy in terms of magnetic field. Okay, so used in the transformers filters, SMPS, so switch mode power supply. So SMPS is a type of a power supply. So there it is being used. And transformer is also comes under the passive components because it doesn't amplify the signal. Okay, so the transfer electrical energy between the circuit. It transfers the electrical signal and can be step up or a step down voltage, but still considered as a passive circuit because it is a step up also. Okay, but still in spatial case it kept as a passive component. Okay, so you can remember this because it doesn't amplify the signal. Okay, then the applications are for current limiting and the voltage division. Okay, and so to limit the current and divide the voltage, so resistors are being used. Then for the energy storage, capacitors are used for noise filtering, smoothing the rectifier output. Yeah, we have seen that point. Filtering, or we can say the ripple filtering. Then inductors are used for the tuning circuits, reduce filters in the power supplies. Then transformers are used for the voltage conversion in a power distribution circuit. Then the importance in the circuit by comparing with the active and the passive components. So active components are mainly considered as a brain of the circuit. Okay, so इसको हम brain as a circuit, brain of the circuit बोल सकते हैं. So for processing, amplifying and the controlling it is used. Passive components are the supporting tools. Okay, or supporting tools to the active components, then stabilizing, filtering and the storing energy. Okay, we have learned the active and the passive components. So we'll just see the difference between the active and the passive components by considering the different features. So first feature we are considering here, it is a power requirement. Okay, so for the active components require the external power, but for the passive components do not require the external power. And amplification, active components can amplify the signal, means the output is greater than the input, and the passive components cannot amplify the signals. Okay, and the function is control electron flow, switching and the amplification, and it stores, register or release energy. Okay, the gain, it active components provides the gain, passive components no gain. We have seen that, means here the output is greater than the input, and here we have considered output is less than equal to input, means it is not providing the gain because gain is the output upon input. Okay, and their examples are diode, transistor, IC and the vacuum tube. And the passive components are resistor, capacitors, inductors and the transformer. And their applications are amplifiers, switches, processors. And the passive components applications are filtering, tuning, voltage control. Okay, so yes, so this is about the active and the passive components.